Good morning and afternoon to everyone, depending on where you are in the Asia Pacific region, and welcome to our webinar, Solving Complex Time and Attendance, Global Labour Compliance and Mobile Workforce Challenges. Presenting today will be Pawan Manjotra, who's one of our Senior Solution Engineers at Replicon, and myself, Gary Morley, who's the Regional Director for Asia Pacific. Our agenda today will be as follows. We'll give you a brief introduction to Replicon and who we are, talk about the challenges around global time and gross pay, what considerations should you have when looking for a solution, a balanced approach to finding a solution that matches your organisational needs. Then we'll carry out a quick demonstration of our time intelligence platform live. And finally, what is the ROI, as in return on investment, you should expect from a transformation as such. So a few housekeeping items before we kick off. You'll be on mute during the presentation. Q&A will take place at the end of the webinar. You can submit your questions at any time via the questions text box located on the right-hand side of your screen. And also please use the full screen mode by going to the top of the GoToMeeting interface, select Zoom, which will allow you to, as on the left-hand side of your screen, top of your screen, which will then allow you to have full screen viewing of the slides and the demonstration today. So who is Replicon? Well, we're a long-term player operating for over 20 years in the time intelligence segment globally. We have over 7,800 customers, with over 1,000 of those in the large enterprise space. Our clients to date are spread across 70 plus countries, being viewed in 20 different languages and as many currencies. And we deliver our solution through the cloud with the guaranteed 99.9% uptime using AWS around the world. We have over 450 team members supporting our clients globally. We've won many accolades and awards, including the Stevie Awards. In fact, we've won that a number of times as well for customer excellence and have done so in the recent 6 to 12 months. Why is time so important and keeping time so important? Well, it's a finite resource. Companies that use their time in a more informed, intelligent way have a competitive advantage. As exampled here on screen, you probably fit into one of these profiles. So for instance, if you are a 1,000-person organization, you have over 2 million hours at your disposal per year. If you're a 5,000 scale organization, you have over 10 million hours at your disposal as a resource per year. And if you're at the top end in terms of large global organization with 50,000 or beyond, but say at 50,000, you have a massive 104 million hours at your disposal every year as an organization. But to use this time to your competitive advantage, you need a new way of thinking about and how you manage the finite resource of time. And that's where Replicon comes in with our time intelligence platform. Time intelligence is a concept of treating time as a valuable asset. The more time intelligent you are, that means you have better access to information and the opportunity to make better real-time decisions. The better the decisions you make by the organization, the better the outcome and of course the performance of the overall business, whether local in country or globally as many country operations. So when you're treating time as an asset, you're helping your company manage the most scarce resource and typically the highest cost within a business, which is your people's time. So how can we help at Replicon? What we have on screen here is Replicon's time intelligence platform, where we transform time into an intelligent asset. On the left-hand side of the slide is how we gather and harvest data, and on the other side, the right-hand side, how we present families of functionality to our clients. Then moving back to the left, when we're harvesting data, essentially allowing you to pull data into Replicon by two different methods. First is by direct signals, which is essentially where you're using our application, interacting with them directly as employees through PCs, smartphones, tablets, or cloud clocks, or indirectly, bringing signals in indirectly, where we harvest data from a system in our client's ecosystem. This could be gate access, it could be security systems, phone systems, job management systems, any system where there's time data to be harvested and brought into our platform. Getting other time-related data into our time intelligence platform, we make sure data is accurate and has context, of course. We use machine learning and AI to make sure it's accurate and on time for payroll processing. Again, back on the right, we have a lot of features and functionality to be utilized, predominantly around time attendance, time off, and project management. And then to the adjacent to that on the far right, of course, you're then looking at three different functionality families that we have. First being the enterprise time management, where we deliver a mobile app as a digitized front end to an ERP platform, example, SAP ERP. Clients can give us work breakdown structures, and we can capture time in our mobile app and apply to the work breakdown structure and send it back to a client's instance of SAP. Next is our global time and gross pay automation. This is the platform we will focus on today. Anytime we are touching payroll or data that touches pay, we're using this part of our platform where we provide a statutory compliant gross payroll file in each country where the client operates. We will talk about this in more detail later through the presentation and the demonstration. And finally, we have our professional services automation. This is our project management functionality where we take project time, costing, and resources all the way to either chargebacks or invoicing a client for billable time. So what are the common use cases? We've just touched on three of the major use cases, of course, enterprise time management, global time and gross pay automation, and professional services automation. But there are many more because we are a nimble platform. And some of those examples, as on screen, I'll just touch on, would be compliance management for global payroll, or for a shared service administration as a function, either multiple or single for a global or regional operation, and remote workforces. So what are the challenges around time collection and global and gross pay creation? Most organizations know that it can be very complex to process payrolls, and we'll just go around the globe as we see before us, and those complexities come from operating in multiple countries or multiple states within a country such as Australia with different laws, multiple locations, multiple employee types, mobile deskless field workforce that's becoming an even greater requirement and demand on business is being mobile or working remotely. 5, complex bargaining agreements, or here in Australia, of course, enterprise bargain agreements, complex PTO policies, and of course, statutory complexity, which is always on our doorstep and always changing. So these are all things that add to the degree of difficulty when trying to get payrolls processed on time and, of course, accurately. These challenges create what we call the traditional approach. That is finding something that fits every country, as in essentially a once-off solution. You may have something in Australia or in a state of Australia, or you may have something in Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore, all different. That is so atypical of the clients and what we see across the market today, regionally and globally, for that matter. Examples of this could be essentially a local provider, it could be a local vendor, a spreadsheet, a 3-ring binder, all different ways that it can be done. Of course, this creates a very complex ecosystem to manage for IT and for payroll. And it's not uncommon to find a global company with over 30 to 40 different time systems in play. Extraordinary, but it's more often the norm as we engage with our clients in the marketplace. So here are the common challenges that come from this traditional deployment. Of course, lack of visibility, unquestionably, inability to scale, compliance. Now this is a biggie, this is huge. And this is a theme that we'll talk about in today's conversation in certainly more detail. Inability to get all employees involved and extended life cycles of the implementation. So just drilling down a little bit more detail, lack of visibility, multiple disparate time systems and typically in different time zones, languages. They're siloed, not accessible by an entire HR and payroll team or teams. This typically gives you a fragmented data and views of that data, which makes global visibility prior to payroll very challenging. So inability to scale. Scale is different things in different situations. An example could be hard to scale geographically. Some providers, or vendors that is, are very good with large volumes of workers in a single location, but not very good with multiple locations with small populations, which is pretty atypical in the Asia-Pacific region. So you may have, say, in China, for instance, 1,000 employees, but only have 2 in Australia. Here in Australia, you may have 10,000 employees, but small groups of 10 or 20 in different locations within the region or elsewhere in the world. So it's hard to find someone that can do it all, as in scale globally in a very concise way. Compliance is the client's problem in many cases when timekeeping is discussed. Each country has different statutory requirements and different CBAs or EBAs, as in enterprise bargaining agreements, and other issues. Legislative compliance being the biggest issue, according to Ernst & Young's recent global survey. Their findings were that 54% of HR payroll teams still manage labour compliance manually. Extraordinary fact, but it's true. We see it, and it's been reported through research from EY. Very credible. A lot of different employee types, all very different things and very difficult to manage in one single platform. It can create seams in the data, process and visibility. On average, it creates about 40 to 60 hours of extra manual work per pay period. Now, implementation cycles, not uncommon to see organizations take on a transformation project and have a 2-year or 3-year, sometimes longer horizon to actually get to being live with an application. This is, as you expect, arduous, eats a lot of resources within the organization and causes fatigue on the organization, especially in-country resources, as they have to implement that change or changes over time. This impacts with a higher total cost of ownership and certainly a delayed return on investment, which is becoming a higher priority and focus for executives of companies today. On average, the total cost of ownership goes up by 75 to 100%, and we've seen a lot higher than that in different circumstances. So here is what we think you should look for, and we'll just strike these off. Number 1 is certainly mobility, being able to engage all employees. It's a must, it's a foundation. 2, need to harvest time data from existing systems. Time data lives all over your ecosystem, I'm sure you would appreciate. 3, configurable and work on day 1, or day 365, or year 3, or year 5, or year 6, and beyond, and manage changes over that time period. 4, statutory compliance needs to be part of the platform. 5, needs to scale, that is, no geographic constraints, be able to accommodate whether it's 30,000 employees or 1 employee in a location or a country of operation. 6, finally, work well with other systems you have in your ecosystem environment. Taking a balanced approach is optimal, a must. This is having good technology, provide insightful and real-time information to payroll. You need to be able to deploy globally and mobily. You need compliance as a service, not just as a technology tool or a promise. We at Replicon urge prospective clients to take a platform approach like our time intelligence platform as we're describing. Our scriptable framework allows extreme levels of configurability, helps during times of change, but also to manage things like enterprise bargain agreements, data, and approval workflows. Must be exception driven, so exception, of course, doesn't become your main job or bushfire to put out. And of course, it needs to scale, unquestionably. Let's look at some of the functionality as it relates to the impact on an organization. Advanced shift management and creation, so you can ensure proper staffing levels. If you staff right, of course, you'll improve utilization and manage costs effectively. You will see a 5 to 10% utilization improvements coming from that, if managed appropriately. We have a purpose-built mobile app that is very intuitive and easy to use as an interface. Employees get assistance from chatbots, making sure easy to use and high adoption rates. High adoption rates is a precursor to a successful project and realizing your return on investment. A 100% adoption in the first month is the norm in our clients as they use our mobile applications. It's certainly a strength. Mobile application deployments will enrich employee experience, more information in their palm of the hand, which creates flexibility and ability to request things such as time off, but it gives the organization real-time information like geolocation and geofencing will allow you to improve schedule and adherence at the same time, giving you effective checks and balances within your operations, giving you the potential of a 90% improvement upside. Job structures. We provide a vital insight into timing of projects, the cost, the profitability of even the most complex project. This can help tighten labour costs, especially when looking at utilisation, actual versus budget. You'll need to manage well and effectively in real time, see how labour is spent and how profitable you are, of course. Here you can realise a 10% reduction in labour costs as an outcome. Collective or enterprise bargain agreements can have a significant impact on pay, as you know. Our platform accommodates CBAs and EBAs by applying pay rules that are created to calculate accurate pay. These can be changed as the EBA or CBAs change. This also allows you to be 100% compliant and accurate at all times. Workflows. They're important as each organisation is different and needs to be managed as such. As part of our implementation process, we tailor workflows to match organisational operation and flow. By doing this, you're validating what takes place meets the company policy. It optimises things that are dynamic within the business. Example of that would be management in the approval process. We manage the operational burdens and minimise the admin overhead within the business. Global compliance, it's an imperative, and Replicon is the only vendor in the enterprise space that provides compliance services. How do we do this? We create a statutory payroll in each country, then add it to our library so a client can deploy when they go into that country. Then we continually monitor each of those regions with our expert team for updates. Today, we're compliant in over 60 countries, as is our compliance library, as shown here. with global spec to what we are at in each of the regions and countries. This means we can go into a country and very quickly turn on a live instance that is compliant for a client immediately. We can also create pay rules for new countries as we go and are driven by client demand. Compliance as a service is absolutely our offering. Compliance in a box. This is our compliance library of 60 plus countries and growing. This is part of our platform as we've described. We constantly monitor for changes and updates. We alert clients on upcoming changes. We then create a new pay rule. When it's then due by law, we then provide to our clients. You can also continue to use the old for historical and audit purposes, which you would need to as an ongoing business. So in other words, update to new as you to be compliant, but also historically have what is required from an audit standpoint. Our payroll workbench is where the payroll team go to a single location to view statutorily compliant gross pay files for every country in their deployment. This level of visibility is hard to get due to typically fragmented deployments, the nature that companies have of their time attendance, but can greatly help in payroll accuracy, visibility, and the timeliness of payroll processing, delivering more than a 90% reduction in payroll errors. That's significant. Scale is also important. Deploying a true global platform allows our clients to expand without constraint. Constraint being cost, geographic, and of course time constraints. Zero fixed costs for additional countries and locations as you roll out or grow your business. Our platform is localized with over 20 languages, so stronger engagement with local employee population within country language. It's essential and certainly within our region of Asia Pacific. And we deliver similarly at a multi-currency level within our applications. We are very flexible as a platform. Time capture can be in or outside of Replicon. Employee profiles generally come in from HRS platforms like, say, Workday or Oracle or ADP or other systems. And it's very easy to get data into Replicon. Very flexible on that basis, very easy to set up. Schedules can be external or can also use Replicon. We can be the system of record for time off or handle just the request components. We then ensure accuracy and start to process by applying compliance, that is company pay policies and pay rules. When you use the workbench, you can apply rates, giving you a feature-rich gross pay file down to a dollar level before sending to payroll vendor or an ERP for processing on your payroll cycle. Plug and play is by the nature of what we are and what we do. We can take and give information from HRS systems, from global payroll providers, domestic providers. We can also send data to the GL, such as we typically send to the GL PTO liability reports for time off liability. Okay, I've said a lot. You're most probably wanting to see all of this come together in one place. So let's have a look at our time intelligence platform in real time with a live showcase. So I'll now hand off to Pawan to take over, and he'll walk you through and show you the power of what we can do. So Pawan, I'll just momentarily change presenter if you give me a moment. Right, just changing to you, Pawan, over to you.
All right, and Gary, if you can confirm that you're able to see my screen.
Yes, I can.
Thanks for that. So essentially, on the demo here, what we would be looking at is the complete workflow, where we can actually see employees capturing time, how this moves into an approval process within the system, and then of course the admin side of things, where payroll managers can extract those payroll files, project setups, and of course the administration side of things. The key focus on today's demo would really be around compliance service offering. So as Gary had mentioned, there is a compliance library that we maintain within Replicon, which is up to date and is constantly updated from time to time. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. Um, so this is my compliance dashboard. Now, as Gary had mentioned, we do maintain these policies within Replicon. They are up to date and they are updated constantly. As and when there are changes, you'll actually see a notice over here that actually draws your attention to go ahead and sort of accept it. And then based on the library itself, you can see all of the countries. Now, on this screen within my compliance dashboard, I can clearly see in Australia, I've got 17 users. And if I click on it, I can see all the users that are tied to a certain policy. In this case, it's the Australian policy. I may have a global workforce. We've got employees in Canada, across the United States, Europe, Germany, and what have you. So these will be the users that will have those relevant pay rules assigned to them. And of course, we maintain visibility on the version updates. So you can actually see, in this case, of course, it was added on the 7th of March that a new standard pay rule for Australia was added by Replicon. This is managed by Replicon, as you can see, right? And of course, on the far right, you can see the status on whether it was up to date or it requires any attention. Now, within the payroll, within the compliance dashboard, what we're actually looking at the pay rules, and the pay rules are essentially the rules that sort of tie down your CBAs and EBAs together into business rules and policies. So I'm going to show you the pay rules over here. These are again across the different countries and regions that we operate in. We've got these built into the system, and as you can see, these will be the policies that you will assign to the different users. It talks about what the policies are. Right on top, you can clearly see that this is maintained by Replicon, and you don't have to necessarily take any action on this. Your business users will simply go ahead and assign these policies to the relevant users in those specific geographical locations, and automatically these rules will start processing the time data that's captured, that's harvested into the system, and essentially turn it into intelligent assets. Now, in certain cases where you may have a requirement to actually set up your own policies, we allow you to do that. It's essentially by clicking on Add Rules. Here's where you can actually go ahead and set up your own rules, where you can actually set up your calculations. You can have your daily thresholds, weekly thresholds, which pay code a certain condition would tie down to, what would the pay code be called. So all of this is something that you will have access to. Your business users will be able to set this up with minimal or no assistance from Replicon. Right, so we give you the power in your hands to actually go ahead and set this up on your side of things. Now, in addition to managing the compliance library and the pay rules, we've automated a lot of other elements within the system. We'll talk about the timesheet pre-population methods or the timesheet population methods itself. This comes in handy when users are actually entering time on their timesheets. We've automated it to an extent. So the whole idea is really not to spend too much time in capturing time, right? So what happens is we can have pre-population methods based on scheduled hours. We can allow users to actually bring in previous timesheet, including time data or excluding time data. So you could just make copies of your previous timesheets into the current timesheets. And of course, if you further want to update it, you are allowed to update it and go ahead and submit your timesheets out. So that would be the pre-population methods. Now, in addition to populating these time values, we want to make sure that the time entering the system is validated and is corrected, rather than going downstream all the way to HR and to payroll, and then they find out there could be errors in the system. We're trying to sort of take care of this right at the very beginning, and that's where we would leverage the time validation rules, the timesheet validation rules. These would typically cover a lot of scenarios, which could include you want to have certain activities and project selection required as mandatory. You may have thresholds for daily hours, for weekly hours. You may have estimates set up on projects and tasks, and you don't want team members to exceed those. We'll have visibility on this as well on the timesheet level, which I will showcase as we go along. So essentially, all of these validation rules will come into play when we're trying to cleanse out and make sure that the data entered into the system is clearly validated. Now, in addition to the out-of-box validation rules, which typically cover most scenarios, we also have the ability to create custom validation rules. This is again using the scripting engine within Replicon. So that's taken care over here. Now, once time has been populated on the timesheets and it has been validated, it would move into an approval process, and that is again taken care of to an extent where we've got certain conditional approval rules set up within the system. Those could be as simple as escalate to a next level supervisor after a certain elapsed time. So let's say there is a certain supervisor in the system that needs to approve timesheets, and for some reason they've fallen sick. This can certainly be escalated. Yes, Gary.
We're still on the landing pages and the home page of the application. I'm not seeing any change.
Let's see. Any changes now, Gary?
Yes, we are.
Okay, my bad. I think for some reason this had paused the screen share. Not sure what happened there. So here's what we've actually taken a look at, guys, in case we've just missed that out. So Gary, are you saying nothing changed since we've started this demo?
Yes, we're just on the home page of the application, as in the platform.
All right. So very quickly, let me just showcase things that we've just covered in the past few minutes. So this was the compliance dashboard that I was talking about, where we've got all of the countries listed. You can see all of the users that are assigned to the different pay rules within the system. And as mentioned, here's where you can actually see the status of these pay rules, whether they're up to date or they require attention. So as Gary had mentioned, every time that we roll out these pay rules, you will be notified as an administrator to go ahead and review these and then apply these at your convenience time. So that's where you would do this. Of course, you can see a trail with regards to when it was added and then when it was last updated. So this was really around the compliance dashboard. I did talk about pay rules, and that's essentially within the admin section down over here. Again, these are all the pay rules that we've built into the system. And of course, if you want to see details on what the pay rule is, you click on the pay rule itself and it actually shows you what parameters have been set on this pay rule. It gives you a detailed description on the left side over here. And of course, these pay rules, as mentioned, will be maintained by Replicon, and with minimal or no attention from your business users, this will continue doing its work. Now, in addition to these pay rules, I had also mentioned if you need to have anything custom built with regards to certain CBAs and EBAs within your company, here's where we can actually also create those custom pay rules. We can define those thresholds and, of course, the different pay codes that they need to be associated to. And this would do all the heavy lifting for us with regards to distributing time captured by the users on their timesheets, and then essentially becoming the extract for the gross payroll file. So this was with regards to pay rules that I did talk about, and perhaps it got missed as we were moving through. The validation rules that I spoke about is essentially this piece over here. We've got the validation rules built into the system, and as I'm showcasing over here, you can see all of the different validation rules that we've got. These are on a timesheet level, and these would essentially make sure that the time entered is meeting those certain criteria. It is validated, it is cleansed, and then passed into the system. So those are the validation rules. I had to talk about the pre-population methods, which essentially make it easier for users to populate their timesheets. It could be based on the hours that they're scheduled. It could be based on previous timesheets with or without the time data itself. It could just include the activities or the project selections that the users have worked on. And what I was talking about was essentially the conditional approval rules, which is this element over here, where you can have those different conditional rules built into the system. Supervisors don't have to necessarily look at timesheets that fall within a certain threshold of regular time. In other words, all the regular timesheets probably don't need review and approval. They could be automatically approved. Anything that really does have any element of overtime needs to come out to a supervisor for approval. So that way, all the mundane tasks of really looking at those redundant timesheets over and over can be eliminated, and you can solely give attention to the ones that really need to be reviewed. So supervisor reviews overtime, supervisor approves overtime, anything above a threshold, or as I had mentioned, if a supervisor is away for any reasons, after a certain elapsed time, we can automatically escalate the approval to the next level, to the supervisor's manager. Could be a director, could be a VP within the organization, and we can also define at which hierarchical levels this would get escalated to. So before I move forward, Gary, just a quick check if we're running good with the screens.
Yeah, it's fine.
Here today. Perfect, perfect. So what I now have to showcase is essentially the different timesheets. So everything that we've spoken about with regards to the pre-population methods, the validation rules, all of that come into play when you're actually looking at the timesheets itself. So on the timesheet, and I'll of course drill into the details of the timesheets as well. So a payroll manager, in this case, will have access to the payroll tab, can have access to dashboard reporting and administration. Now, within Replicon, we very aggressively control the view and access of the platform for the different users based on their roles within the organization. So if you're an end user that only needs to go into capture time, you'll just have the timesheet view. You go in, you capture your time and come out. Managers could have access to reviewing their team members' timesheets and, of course, approving them or rejecting them for reasons. And then, of course, what we're looking at right now as Chris DeFonte is a payroll manager's view where I've got access to all the timesheets within the system. Now, you can, of course, throw in certain date filters to look at timesheets within a certain period. So let's say I want to see timesheets from the 1st of April. So we'll just go down here. So we're looking at from the 1st of April till the end of April. Show me all the timesheets within the system. All of these timesheets I can see are a total of 26 for the month of April. I can see how many were not submitted, how many are overdue, how many were rejected, what's waiting for approval, and of course, all the ones that are approved. Now, down over here on the main screen itself, even before you drill into the timesheets, we're providing visibility on the validations that we spoke about some time back. So as I hover my mouse, I can clearly see that a certain time was entered against a certain task or a certain project that has exceeded a certain estimated hours in this case. So we've got visibility on that. Of course, if I want to see more details, I can drill into it. The approval of timesheets is also possible by a payroll manager. In the event a payroll manager needs to extract data for pay run, they don't have to necessarily run behind managers and supervisors to have them approve timesheets. They can bypass approvals, and this is again controlled by you. So as you can see, it does give you a message that says that you will be bypassing the regular approval flow, and that's essentially what you can do over here. So that's with regards to the validation rules that actually validate data. Now let's take a look at different types of timesheets within the system and how time is captured, which essentially interfaces with your existing systems, as Gary had mentioned on one of those slides. So in this case, what we're actually looking at is a complex timesheet. These could be time punches that we're importing from your existing time capturing systems. We clearly indicate what time you came in, what time you went out on those days. In addition to which, we can also front end your existing ERP systems. It could be SAP systems. It could be any of your project management systems. So let me talk about this over here. What's really happening is between the time that's captured on the punches with regards to your start and end punch, users will have the option to come into Replicon and distribute their time against the different projects and tasks that they're working on. And as you can clearly see, we also showcase, we allow users to actually see the progress within those tasks and within those projects on a timesheet level, right? So these, when they meet a certain condition, will trigger those validation rules, and they'll actually go ahead and give you these messages. We can give you soft warnings, we can give you hard warnings. Soft ones will at least show you the messages, but will allow you to submit your timesheets. Hard warnings will ensure that you clear out these warning messages before which you can even submit the timesheet. So we're trying to kind of make sure that the data is already validated right at the very beginning, rather than going into an approval process and even downstream all the way to payroll and to billing and the other departments that would actually extract this data. So that's a timesheet we're talking about with regards to being a complex timesheet. Let's look at another type of a timesheet, which um, typically mobile users using their mobile devices can actually um, make best use of. It could look something like this. So let's say I go back into the month of December just to extract some data. We'll take the user Scott. Again, I can see certain warning messages. Let's say I want to take a look at this timesheet of Scott. This will be a different type of timesheet as mentioned. This timesheet allows users to actually punch in and punch out on their mobile devices. So you can actually see the start time, end time, any break, start time, end time. We're clearly distributing that time between work time, between break time, and of course, if they've got any time off bookings based on company holidays, we can actually even show you those company holidays. In this case, Scott has worked on this holiday over here. We also showcase public holidays. It was Christmas time. It was Boxing Day. That's visible on the calendar over here. That's visible on the timesheet over here. And of course, with regards to the punches itself, we provide more visibility. So what you're seeing over here is a list view. We can get into more details to actually see where these punches were coming in from. So when I click on details, it actually shows me the timestamps along with the GPS coordinates captured on the user's mobile device. And it, of course, clearly also indicates the type of device that the users have used to capture these punches. And these are against different activities and could be against different work breakdown structures or projects and tasks. In addition to the time punches and the GPS coordinates, we can also help you with validating the users using, of course, images or thumbnail images of the users itself. This is captured using the front-facing camera on your mobile device. And of course, the mobile app actually lets you capture these images where you can actually see all the users' thumbnail images on the timesheet. In addition to all of this, we also let you see where the user is actually clocked in and clocked out from. So in this case, I can actually see Scott has made a total of 20 punches. This is from, so I can actually expand this over here into full screen mode. This is from the California office over here. I can click on all the punches over here. I can see more info. It shows me when the user came in, when the user went out, and where all these punches were performed. I could actually scroll up and down over here. I can see if there was any validations that have kicked in. This is again, the user has a meal break violation, and that's captured within the system over here using the pay rules and the different conditions set up on the user's profile. In addition to all of this, all the time that's captured, and as we've spoken already, the pay rule engine will actually kick in to start distributing your time against the different pay codes with the quantity of time. And of course, we can also allow you to save your gross pay details within Replicon. In most cases, customers would prefer the pay codes along with the quantity to pass on into your payroll system, but Replicon also has those containers to actually save those dollar value amounts as the gross pay details. So in this case, you can clearly see that there was a certain time captured towards regular time automatically by the payroll. Anything beyond a certain condition went in towards overtime. There was also meal penalty. And of course, if the user had time off bookings, which probably needs to be bucketed against a different pay code, that's visible over here. So that's essentially with the within the payroll summary section. This view is configurable, so we can have this view turned on for users. We can allow users to only have access to just the pay code along with the quantity. This section can be hidden altogether in case you don't want your users to actually see this. We can have this turned off. And of course, if you want users to see it, this is the view that they'll have in summary in total. So those are the different timesheet templates and the different methods which users will actually capture time within the system. Now, once all of this is captured within Replicon, and as you've seen, the entire flow time is captured. It has been validated. It has gone into an approval process. Approval process would essentially include approving the timesheets by the relevant approvers. All of this then flows down into the payroll, what we call the payroll workbench, or essentially where the payroll managers can actually extract this data to do their pay runs. So you've got a couple of filters. You could pick and choose a certain date range. You could actually go ahead and pick up data that has been part of a previous pay run or is currently in a draft status or has been completed, timesheet statuses, certain departments, certain employee types. You want to do pay runs only for certain locations or against certain users. That's visible. So the data that actually flows down into the system would be um, the user details along with the different pay codes. In other words, the time that they've spent, and of course the dollar value amounts that we can actually extract. And as Gary had mentioned, we're a global platform, so multi-currency supported, multi-languages supported. As you can see, all of the different. This is a classic example of an organization which has users across the globe, and you can see in their relevant dollar value amounts the different pay that the different pay codes are entitling the users to. So that's essentially the payroll workbench. Now this data is then extracted, wherein you would actually create pay runs with certain filters applied, and you would have the pay run extract look like this. So this would be your payroll data that you've actually put into. This is a Sydney payroll example of a pay run. So I've got my pay run with my users and of course all the data that I need between a certain date range. This data can then be exported against different file types. So the file types that we've got within Replicon is something that gives you the flexibility to actually set those up. A lot of organizations would actually charge you a lot to actually even allow you to sort of manage these file formats, but within Replicon, it's left up to you. You can go ahead and push out those files in certain standard formats. If you want to create a certain format based on which payroll system you're using and where you want to send this data out, you would just go ahead and click on add a file format, give it a name, and then of course your data mapping. So this section allows you to actually go ahead and map all the data points within Replicon against labels within your payroll system. So let's say you've got users set up in Replicon as users. This probably needs to have a label of a U name, like a username within your payroll system. You've got entry dates, and entry dates is just set up as a date field within your payroll system, and the date format is in a certain way. You can actually go ahead and set that up over here, save the file, and then of course you could choose your export options, whether you want to download this file or you want to send this out to an SFTP location from where the payroll system would actually pick this up. So that's with regards to the payroll workbench. I did want to talk about the mobile app as well, the capture of time on the mobile device. So I'm just going to fire up my mobile app over here, and it should come up any moment now. So the mobile app really allows users to capture time, and of course for supervisors and managers to review time and approve the same. Um, just bringing this screen to the main screen. What I also did want to talk about was what we have as an app called Cloud Clock. So I'll step into that in just a moment. I'll just bring my mobile screen up. I'm just mirroring this on my iPad just to make it visible on a larger screen, but the interface is identical to what it would be on an iPad, on an iPhone or an Android device. We've got the Replicon app supported on both those platforms, so users can actually, the mobile users can actually use their mobile devices to go ahead and log into the system. So that's the Replicon app. I'm going to bring it up. Of course, we've got the chatbot, but I'll just go into the timesheet view itself. As you can see, I am clocked in. So it's showing me that I'm clocked in. And of course, since I'm clocked in, it's not showing another clock in button over here, but the obvious options are for me to transfer into something, to take a break, or to clock out. And as I scroll down on the mobile app, I can actually see when I clocked in, when I clocked out, the entire trail of my punches over here. I can view this on my timesheet within the mobile app. So when I click on view timesheet, it actually shows me my timesheet. This view over here is actually showing me all of my punches on the different days. As I scroll down, we've also got the map view over here. So if you'll see, I've actually clocked in on a different location over here, and then I've clocked in on a different location over here. So it's actually capturing all of this on the mobile interface using Google Maps. So as you can see, these are the two different locations that I've clocked in from. So typical of your mobile workforce, where they will be clocking in against on different job sites. Now, I can also have visibility on the mobile app itself with regards to the payroll details. I can actually see how many hours I've put in against regular time, how much of overtime. I've got real-time visibility against how much I will get paid. This is the gross pay. So all of this visibility for the end users on the mobile device itself. In addition to managing your own time on the mobile app, supervisors, as mentioned, will also have the ability to review team members' timesheets. So they've got something called the dashboard. When you go into the dashboard, you can actually see how many timesheets are waiting for approval, time off requests are waiting for approval. You can actually see your team punches over here. This gives you real-time visibility against users on how many were scheduled, how many were in, how many were not in, how many are on our break, where the users are clocking in from. So if I just click on this over here, this will actually show me all the 6 users that did clock in. So down at the bottom, I can see there was Scott, there's Jimmy. Even the validation rules that we spoke about on the web is actually visible over here. So if I go ahead and click on the violations over here, it actually shows me what those violations are based on those users' punches and if they've missed any breaks and what have you. So all of this is visible on the mobile app itself. Again, as mentioned, you can go ahead and review timesheets, approve these, time of requests coming into the system. All of this is visible on the mobile app. So that's with the mobile experience for the users. As also mentioned, we do have something called the cloud clock. This is a typical use case of a manufacturing environment or a factory environment where you've got a workforce walking into the office and they probably have gear on and they don't necessarily have access to devices to actually clock in, computers, laptops, mobile devices. They probably don't have access to such devices. In those cases, we can actually place an iPad at those key locations within your offices, and users can simply walk up to it, authenticate themselves, and walk away. We've got 3 different ways of authenticating users. One is, of course, using QR codes, or they could actually enter user IDs. We also support face recognition. So you'll see on this video over here, Scott is actually going to walk up to the iPad, and as soon as he's in front of the iPad, it automatically detects his face. It knows this is the user Scott that's trying to clock in, and of course, it's authenticating you as the user Scott over there. And of course, your options to go ahead and you were clocked out, so your option is to actually go ahead and clock in. In this case, you're starting your day. It's the same thing when you're actually clocking out. It shows you the option to clock out. So this is the time punch captured along with the image of those users that you'll actually see on the timesheets. So that's with regards to the global compliance service offering that we've seen, payrolls tied down into the system, time validated within the system, time is converted into an intelligent asset for you. Now, once all of this is captured into the system is when you want to sort of extract the data or you want to review the data. So we've actually got access to something called the dashboard. This is typically used by senior exec folks and folks within the organization that don't necessarily want to get into reports, don't want to necessarily get into those numbers, but they want more of a graphical representation of how things are trending within the organization. So we could actually set up these different charts within the system. This is a classic example of pay code hours in the last 3 months. I can see how time was captured within the organization. I can see time offs in the last 3 months. I can see how hours were put in by different users against different activities, how users have captured overtime. And these charts are sort of dynamic in nature. So I can actually click on the chart itself, and it takes me into the next screen where I can then extract this data out as a CSV file. I can also use this image out as, I can export this image if I want to use it in one of my slides. I can actually drill into this chart itself to see further. So let's say I can see there's a whole bunch of hours put in against testing and coding. I want to see who's been working on this. I can actually click on it, and it then shows me these were the users that have actually worked on this certain activity, with Stan having put in the maximum number of hours, and the same thing is updated over here that I can extract. And setting these up is very easy with minimal or no training as such. It's an intuitive interface. You click on the pencil icon, you click on the plus over here. You've got your options of the template that you want to pick up. So let's say you're looking at time and attendance of users against perhaps activities, and what you're after is probably hours. You've got that data populated over here, already shown in the chart. You can, of course, then throw in filters. Let's say you're looking at some of the top 5 or 6 activities that you're sort of tracking. You throw in a filter there. You want to see this against the last 3 months or the last 6 months. Hit on apply. And then, of course, you've got your chart ready. You could go ahead and use 4 of the charts that includes bar chart, grouped bars, pie, and lines. And once you've got this set up, you click on save. And this chart will then be available for you to see every time that you go into the dashboard view. And this does update data in real time. So you can actually see it's refreshing the data, and it is showing me the most up-to-date and current data within the system. So in addition to the dashboard, we've also got the reporting functionality within the system. I'll click on reports to actually show you this. Now, in reports, we've got a whole bunch of canned reports that are made available to you, so you don't have to actually start putting things together. Again, with minimal and no training required, users can seamlessly go into the system and run reports. You're not running database queries, so you can just go in and actually leverage the existing canned reports that we provided. These are templates that you can just pick and choose. You can also create reports from scratch by clicking on new reports. So let's say I'm after certain data with regards to the time data within the system and I want to look at it, I can actually go ahead and click on a report for timesheet details. I could go ahead and pick and choose a certain period that I want to look at this data for. I can go ahead and throw in all the other filters that I actually want to go ahead and look at. I want to see certain timesheets with certain statuses and what have you. With those filters applied, you hit on run report and it shows you exactly the data. So what I'm seeing over here is all the users between a certain period, how much time they've put in, against which codes their time has been distributed over here, and of course the status, whether the timesheets were submitted, waiting for approval, or has been approved, and of course the relevant supervisors. What can we do with this data? We can go ahead and export this out as CSV files. We can push this out as PDF documents, share it over email. You can also set up reports in a recurring manner where you can actually schedule reports to be delivered to your mailboxes. So you give it a name, you choose who the recipients would be, you choose the format of the file, and this is the actual file that gets delivered to your mailbox. It's not a link to a certain location. It's actual files that are delivered to your mailbox. So what Replicon does is it's storing it's storing the data for you, and it's also letting you access this data by downloading it into your system. And of course, if you want to export this out to another system, that's also available within the platform. So that completes what I had planned for this demonstration here today. Gary, I'm going to pass this back to you for your closing comments, and we'll of course take up questions towards the end of the session.
Great, thank you, Pawan. Super effort as usual. So let me just click back so you can see the demo slide. Great. So what we have on screen here is just a few of the enterprise clients using the Time Intelligence platform as showcased by Pawan. As you can see, quite large and very diverse by the industries that they come from. So I thought let's look at a couple of them in a little bit more detail to give you a sense of what value they've received from Replicon or received from Replicon today. So the first one, this is a global technology company with 10,000 employees. They have over 4,000 employees in the US with a bolt-on payroll system. They're operating in 56 countries around the globe with just as many different time systems, believe it or not. Obviously, multiple payrolls, CBAs, multi-language requirements, and currency needs. They deployed a globalized payroll system, but it didn't solve the problem of the obvious data collection and or the compliance. After using Replicon, they are on a single platform with global governance, with all of the control they need, including total visibility at a HQ level. Impacted their total company and streamlined processes to make sure the payroll is accurate and on time every time. Second example is of an engineering company with 50,000 employees globally. It's an engineering company that has needs around project tracking, things such as projects, job tasks, cost centers, etc. Their employees are using different systems for tracking pay, billing clients, overtime components, absentee management. It was all completely separate and on different platforms. When Replicon came into the picture, we gave them one platform, which gave them the functionality of time and attendance, paid time off tracking, project tracking, and use compliance to get to a gross pay, and also billing and invoicing their clients. So very impactful in both of those global enterprise examples. So the last thing I'd like to present to you here today and cover is essentially the return on investment you would expect from a transformation like we've demonstrated and spoke about here this afternoon and this morning. Simply unifying your entire time and gross pay into a single platform is very unique to each organisation, as you expect. We have ways of helping organisations look at and measure that. And of course, that comes in both a hard as well as a soft cost within a business. On average, we can decrease payroll error by 1 to 7%, which is significant money on the scale of organisations we deal with today around the globe and here in Australia and across the region. Decrease admin costs by 50 to 75%, as you would have seen that in many pockets of our discussion as well as the demonstration today, and take the manual intervention out. Obviously reduce compliance risk and streamline to scale as your business grows or as you roll out into existing locations around the region or around the world. Increased employee engagement means 100% capture, 100% accuracy of data and management of your primary asset within the business. Shortly, if you have any further questions post today's session, please send across to the email address on screen, as in sales@replicon.com. So with that, thank you for attending today, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon about managing time as an asset within your business. I'll now close today's meeting and thank you all, and have a great rest of the day wherever you may be. Thank you.